Welcome to Anchoring the Consciousness of Oneness World Summit. Today we have Reiko Ma with us. Reiko is a transformational healer, thought leader, coach, nun, and spiritual cheerleader. She brings many facets to the field of personal development. She's also a nun in the Vishnu Swami tradition and has been teaching on healing and spirituality for over 2 decades and is now based out of Japan. She has extensive training in energy healing work and various modalities of massage and body work. And Her Holiness Jagat Guru Sai Ma Lakshmi Devi Mishrahas has been the guiding force on her spiritual path, and Reiko has dedicated her life path to Sai Ma's mission of global enlightenment. So thank you so much for being here today with us. I appreciate the time that you're taking.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes. So, can you tell the viewers a little bit about this mission of global enlightenment that you have dedicated your life path to?
Yes, I'd love to. We are at a very critical time here on planet Earth, where, in essence, we've exhausted our resources. Countries have been at war with each other for as long as history goes back, and we have come to a point where we cannot sustain life as it is here. And when we originally came to the planet, we didn't come here in this place of division, separation. We actually came to the planet as spiritual beings, to have incredible experiences here, because the planet is a planet of free will. We have the choice. We can say yes, we can say no, which is not the case throughout the whole universe. And because of that, we have this amazing ability to be able to learn through our choices. And that, as we originally came here, the plan was to accumulate all of these experiences and knowledge, and for us to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And over time, we've come to that place where we've forgotten who we are, forgotten that we're actually spiritual beings who extend way beyond this earth plane in terms of our knowingness, in terms of who we are. I mean, here we think we are born, we live a certain amount of years, and we die. And whatever we do, we have to do it within that span. We are, as spiritual beings, much more than that. We are eternal beings in the cosmos, and we come here for a certain amount of time for that purpose of learning. And the enlightenment process it's not about attaining something that we don't have. In various traditions, when you hear about enlightenment or satori, as we would say in Japan, there's always a sense of there's something way out there that we're trying to attain, that the goal is to reach this place, this so-called place of enlightenment. And that's actually not the case. The case is really about enlightening, bringing to light the fact of who we are. It's a remembrance. So it's a remembrance of that we are these incredible spiritual beings who came to this planet to have all these amazing experiences. It's about remembering that that's the purpose, and the purpose wasn't to be here to forget that and to go fully into the separation and forgetfulness of who we are, and to see one another as totally separate from ourselves.
Wow.
It was about learning. Yes.
Yes, about learning. And so, yes, this is something, it's so interesting because I loved having these types of conversations, and, the knowingness of this is not something that you necessarily um, can learn, right? It's not learning something new, it's remembering. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. And so being in this forgetting place, and that we weren't really meant to forget all the things, um, you know, that's one thing that I feel a little bit confused about, really. Like, how did this happen, and why now? Why now? Is the remembering occurring, and what does it look like?
Mhm. The way I see it, and the way I've been experiencing it, is that we've been doing this over and over and over. We talk, just taking, if we can just take the concept of reincarnation, you can, and some people believe in it, some people don't. I'm not trying to push a belief system on anybody, but if you could kind of hear it as a story of, if we come to the planet as to learn things, and we're given free will here to make decisions and choices, whatever we learn here, there are several universal laws that govern us wherever we are in the universe. And one of those universal laws is, or those universal laws really revolve around energy.
Mm.
And the energy, one of those laws would be about whatever energy we put out, we get back. There's this balance, this continuous balance that happens. And so on this earth plane, whatever energy we put out, we get back, coming back to us, and it rebalances itself. And we call this karma. Karma is simply called action and reaction. There's these two forces at play. If we do, for example, if I abandoned you in a previous lifetime, I have to balance that out. It's not that the universe is punishing me for doing certain things. It's not a so-called a sin. It's just that I took a certain action and I have to rebalance that action as a soul. And there's a learning in that rebalancing.
Yeah.
So over this long period of time, and the only way we can rebalance it is back here on earth. So if I, taking that same example, if I abandoned you or somebody in a previous lifetime and leave, as I'm leaving the planet, it's going, oh no, I didn't mean to abandon that person. I have to go back and write this. And so at that point, my reincarnation, my coming back to the earth is reprogrammed. So next time I come, I'm looking for an opportunity. Maybe I'll be abandoned. So I learn about that abandonment issue. I learn about that and at a point bring that back into balance. So we've kind of been doing this back and forth, back and forth. And instead of just balancing, we create something else when we're here. So next time and so we've just been going round and round and round these cycles. But right now, the planet is moving, is shifting into a higher dimension. We've been in this certain energetic level, if you will, where all of this back and forth, all of this karma, all of this energy back and forth has been going on. But we're moving into a higher dimension, meaning we're moving out of this place of separation into a place of unity. We're moving into a higher dimension where we remember who we are, which is remembering that everything that we see, all that we see are another aspect of ourselves. We've just taken ourselves and split us in many ways so we can experience ourselves. It's like a mirror. If you didn't have a mirror to look at yourself in, you wouldn't really know what you look like. Like if you were in a place where there's no reflections, you would not know what you look like. So we've created that outer experience so we can see ourselves and know ourselves and learn. And so why now would be because the whole planet is shifting out of that duality, out of that separation, into that unity, into these higher frequencies. But all this, the karma, the back and forth, still has to be reconciled. It still has to be balanced out. So we're all here balancing out maybe in one lifetime things that we've accumulated over lifetime after lifetime lifetime. Like we might be doing that with like many different people all at once. And so there's a lot going on. It feels like there's a lot going on, but a lot of us are here now to kind of clear that, complete that, so that we as a whole planet can move to another level.
Wow, that's amazing. And so with what's going on right now in the world, the
Mm.
pandemic, the social injustice, which is, you know, it's not new, right? This has been going on for a really long time.
Yeah.
You know, it's people. I believe that people need support more than ever before, and uh, but in order to create change, stress must occur.
Mhm.
So, what would you tell viewers who are under tremendous amounts of stress, and fear?
Mhm.
This is like, I mean, we're talking about, fear of dying from a, you know, COVID, or, the inability to earn an income, or it's across the gambit. It's, worrying about family members and all kinds of things. So, what would you tell the people who are really struggling with this pandemic right now?
Mhm.
Um, how how to how would you tell them to feel better and understand, maybe find some peace in the concept of oneness, that we are all connected and that the universe is working for us, and not, this isn't happening to us, it's happening for us.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's in a way it's really hard to see that in the middle, being in the middle of this. And what I see happening, and it's like these times have been foretold for a long time. Uh, it's not that we're moving further into separation, which it looks like we're moving further into division, or that something that wasn't there is there. It's literally that things that were there, that division, that separation, that diversity, that is coming to the surface. And as planet Earth, as Gaia, and we as residents of Gaia shift into a different place, it's like all the accumulation of things that we've suppressed, pushed down, that have not been dealt with. I spoke about the karma. Whenever one action takes place, another action has to happen to offset that, to balance that. We come back in both sides of the journey. I might have come back in Japan this time, or in the States next time, but might have been in Egypt another time, or might have been born in Africa another time, or in China another time. So we've taken on all these different roles. If we look at it in that way, all these different things that we as a planet, as humanity, have accumulated, these are coming to surface, and we're really being asked to look at that, asked to look at it from all perspectives and bring it back into balance. That's why the divine feminine is rising now, because there's that, we need both, we, because we're in that place of duality, because we split into these two opposing, in a sense, energies to look at each other. And I'm not saying male and female in terms of the body. It's a masculine and feminine energy. You could call it the yin, the yang, the positive and negative, however you want to see the polarities of energy. But these energies are coming back to come back into the balance. Whether at one point it might have been a more masculine, more of a warrior, more of a needing to conquer and conquest and champion energy, or whether it's a more feminine, nurturing, supporting, mothering, that type of energy. There's a balance between the two that's really being called for, because in that rebalancing, then the two can come back together. Like if two energies come together that are totally in two different in frequencies, they can't come back, they can't come back into a match. So everything's being brought back into that within ourselves. Like we carry both energies within us. We might have that very logical part of ourselves, or that very, you know, action taking part of ourselves, and there might be that part of ourselves that are much more open and in that place of connecting, and both are part of who we are on this planet. And so the first thing is to know that all of this is rising, and it's inevitable part of what need is like earth herself, as well as all of us, are bringing all of that to the surface to really reconcile, meaning that it's actually surfacing with the intention of being reconciled. So that if we can move into that place, if we can move past the in a way, it's almost like moving past the history of what happened to look at what's here now in front of us. Like in the past, we could look at history of my grandfather did this to, or your great great grandparents did this to my ancestors, or we can go back as far in history. You could always find that those points where we'll find strife or separation. But for me now, I can't reach back and change something that maybe my ancestor did. But what I can do now is be here and be present with the person in front of me, and we can mutually decide to move past that, to create our own tradition. It's like whatever traditions that we live with on earth, they were something that were created at a certain point, and they served at a certain point, or way of thinking, or way of living, or way of being together or with each other. And it was whatever was created in that moment. Then there are these eternal laws of like love, of grace, of of caring that transcends everything. And then we're in a place that we're being really, I think, called to start creating our own tradition, our new tradition. What is here now, and what can I create? Not from the hurt of the past, knowing what happened, but if we can take that as a way to say no more of this, no more of the separation, no more of. And the COVID in its own strange way is forcing that on us. It's it's asking us to go inside. Jobs are disappearing, traditions are disappearing, things the way they were are no longer working. So we're being called to re look at things in a new way. It's like, even if you look at the economy or anything that we look at in our daily lives, how it's affecting us, everything's shifting on so many levels. And it's like taking a step and saying, okay, what new am I creating? What new can I create or needs to be created out of this? And we can look at what we lost and mourn what we lost and be stuck there. Or we could look at, okay, as we shift, what are the possibilities that this then opens? I mean, even with the COVID, there are so many. I mean, I'm not belittling in any way. There's so many jobs that are lost. There's so many people that are in a very, very difficult situation. And there are also certain jobs that are like blossomed, like grown overnight. And it's like the whole way of being is shifting. Like I see here in Japan, many people are giving up their homes in the city and they're getting places out in the country. The social distancing is starting to create an environment where people can work more from home. And I'm not saying that that's the case for everybody, but that's one level of a shift of the economic and the structural way that we live. That's going to start having us it's going to start funneling through that. A lot of things are going to start shift. So it's a time when we can look into it more in a innovative way, like, okay, with this shift, it's because we're in this place of free will, we can choose to really be down and say, the COVID did this to me, I lost this and this and this, and my whole life changed in this way and very negatively. Or we could say, okay, everything's changing, how do I change with this? What possibilities are opening to me? What can I do now that maybe I couldn't do before? Let's see if we can shift and look at this differently, and take that, because energy is the whole planet is really based on energy. So if we start looking from an energy perspective of what's the possibilities, then that's what we bring towards us. We bring possibilities, then we could bring new ideas. We can start thinking creatively of something differently. And people who are going into that quickly are actually finding themselves moving out of the financial situation in a different way. And again, it could take time to move through just different levels of society, but we all, in a way, COVID's showing us we're all in the same boat.
Mhm.
We're all maybe reacting to it, or can react to it, I should say, in different ways. But we all also have the possibility to choose a shift and change. And each person comes with such unique gifts that maybe I haven't been able to use my gifts until now, but maybe this is giving me an opportunity to bring out my gifts for now, or bring out, like, I do energy healing, but I do hands-on healing. Until January, I was working on site. All my classes were on site. I was always with people physically, and overnight that shifted. And so I'm looking at, so how do I do that online? How do I work with people in a different way? How do I connect with people with a different way? Because my mission isn't necessarily about working hands-on, work with people. My work is really about empowering people to find their possibilities, to move into their enlightenment, meaning remembering that they come with all these gifts. And how do we draw out those gifts? And when we can think from that way of what are all my possibilities, that's what we attract. If we think of in the way of what are all my limitations, what I lost, then that's what we attract. And if we could start being aware of the energy that we live in, put out, then that will be the big place where shifts can begin.
Yeah, that is so important to really understand. I mean, we do not understand how powerful we actually are.
Mhm.
We are powerful beyond measure because we are a part of everything that is. And that balance harmony concept that you're speaking of, that's the energy. It's always trying to get into balance, right? That's what we're seeing on Earth. That's what we're seeing in the cosmos. I mean, you can take it as far out as you want, or you can bring it right in. And yeah, so it is very important. That's just one thing that I really, really wanted to kind of pull out of this, to uh, this like golden nugget of information, that you know we are here having this experience, this human experience, as we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and
Mhm.
we are so powerful beyond what we are conditioned to believe. um, and you can see it. It can be proven. Like, you can look out, you can have a perspective, and then have this experience based on this perspective, and then you can shift your perspective and watch your experience shift at the same time,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and people have been able to slow down, and we've been dealing with this for pretty much the whole year. We're now in November. So we've been dealing with this for a long time, and people are kind of, hopefully getting more settled and feeling better. I notice sometimes when I go out, and this might be the world being my mirror, I go out and see some, stressful interactions. Um, and but it seems like people are starting to kind of just like uh, get used to the changes and things. But yeah, it's so, I don't know. It's so important to really understand that this balance that's being created um, right now. I mean, we're always trying to get there, right? But you're talking about the masculine and feminine, and the
Mhm.
patriarchy that reigned for such a long time, and all this competition, and pushing and forcing, and all the things that uh, you know, is the masculine essence, um, now starting to balance out with the feminine. And this is creating a collapse of the patriarchy. And this happened before, and with the matriarchy, the collapse of the matriarchy, and then the patriarchy. So now it's almost like a pendulum that's swinging back and forth, and then it starts to kind of slow down, and get to the
Absolutely.
balance.
Absolutely. Yes, in the Hindu tradition, we talk about the yugas, these huge cycles that the universe, the whole, we as a solar planet, as a solar system, move through the galaxy in a certain cycle. And this cycle, and within this cycle, there's the masculine and the feminine, they're constantly doing this. There's that. In the same way we have the lunar and the solar cycles, we have the sun and the moon doing the same thing. There's a balance that's innately in nature that happens. And we're at this pivot point where it's shifting. And always when there's a shift, when the patriarch and matriarch shift, there's always that struggle for retaining the status quo. And so we're in the middle of that now as we're shifting into this new yuga. And this new yuga, or this new cycle, is the cycle of truth. The Satya Yuga is the cycle of truth. We're moving out of the darkness into truth. And that's why everything that's been held and in hidden has now surfacing. Everything's being brought to surface, so we see everything and we make our choice based on seeing truth.
Yes, yes, because you cannot build anything solid based on an untruth, right? Eventually, what was built on upon sand will crumble.
Mhm.
And now this is our opportunity to really see, to open our eyes. We're in 2020. It's the year of, clarity, 2020 vision, and we get
Yeah.
to see the truth. And that is a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then we get to make decisions based upon that. And that's our power here, right? And that the free will experiment.
Mm.
So um yeah, this is thank you so much. Um I'm so excited for the viewers to hear this. You mentioned karma a couple of times. I think that that word is so misunderstood.
Mhm.
It means in the minds of many, it means revenge, and you
Mhm.
will hear people say, oh, they'll get their karma. And yes, they will, but it's not a revenge thing. It's not what I really want to hit home is the universe, because we are connected, we are it,
Mhm.
um, does not make us suffer. So
Yes.
suffering is a choice. Can
Mhm.
you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. We, even being born on this planet, we weren't born here to suffer. We weren't born here to get sick. We weren't even born to die. Like our cells, it's an interesting thing about our physical body and our cells. Our cells really don't have a time clock. Like our cells don't say, I'm 10 years old, or I'm 20 years old, or I'm 7 years old, or I'm 100 years old. Our cells are constantly renewing and they don't have any time frame. They only know, or they're only told their age through through information that's passed on.
Mhm.
And so, like right now, you have this whole anti-aging information going out because we're starting to realize, oh, the cells weren't really made to age and die. The body was never made to suffer and grow old or decay. And we as beings here were never meant, I mean, the whole purpose was actually to come here to enjoy this planet. It was to enjoy having this free will, to be able to learn things. It's like I was looking at this in a way of, like, if you were to take two children, right? And they were to both grow up, and one totally sheltered, never having anything to deal with, everything given to them, never having to make any choices, and they grew up in one way, right? And they see the world however it was handed to them. They've never really suffered, but they've never really grown. Then you have another child who grew up, who may have had hardships, maybe fell in love and had their heart broken and got over it and grew, and then maybe dealt with death of a loved one and then grew from that, and then maybe just whatever what life's journey took them on, and they learned so much from that. If at age they were to meet again at age 90, their experiences and who they are will be so different based on all that they've experienced in life. It's like we've chosen to take this path of, what would it be like to, what if I felt I wasn't loved? And what would that feel like? And what would it be to then to move past that and really know, oh, I don't need to be loved. I need to find the love here. I need to be love myself and express that, and in that expression I'm fulfilled. And what if I could learn that by first not having it? You don't know what you don't have unless you don't know what you have unless you go through the not having it. In the
Yeah.
same way, you don't know that you're growing or moving unless there's something that reflects to you, like that you're growing from, like that there's a starting point, and then you move from that, and therefore you know that you've grown. But if you're all that is, and if you're all that you know, then you don't know if anything's changed. And that's who we are. We didn't know, and so we've decided to create all these different we's, so we know that we could see and share. And so when I say we weren't here to suffer, we're here to experience. We took this time to experience, and all these experiences have different vibrational frequencies. There's really only love at the high, like unconditional love, and then there's fear, and everything else is just a variation of energy between the two. And we started from this very high place of love, and we started experimenting around here. And like, okay, let's experiment a little more. Let's experiment a little more. And we started going to these lower frequencies, lower from love and gratitude from the high frequencies to maybe a little bit of feeling anxiety or feeling a little bit of uneasiness. And then maybe something we experience doubt, and then maybe we experience anger, and then we maybe experience hatred, and then we experience so all these different things. And in that, it's not that we necessarily came to to suffer, but we got stuck in these lower frequencies that are so far away from who we are, that when you lead a life that you're not, and you can't remember who you are, that's to me the suffering. And the
Yeah,
way out of that is the remembrance.
right. So, how do people remember who they are?
It's well, first, it's about awareness, because again, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
If we don't know that's the path we've taken, or if we don't, even if it's not knowing, if we don't explore that as a possibility, what if I created all of this myself? What if whatever I'm feeling by choice and not because somebody made me feel this way? What if I'm feeling anxiety by choice and it's just become so habituated that I feel I don't have a choice? Once we have that first realization, then we could look at ways of, okay, this has been so ingrained in me as a habit. It's so in my subconscious that it's become my go-to. It's become my response to everything. I respond to everything with anxiety, or I respond to everything with fear. And that in itself is one definition of trauma. I'm stuck in a certain way of being and I can't get out of that cycle. Once I realized that, then I could start looking at ways to disrupt that pattern, because all it is a pattern. As much as it feels like it's something insurmountable, once we can start recognizing it's a pattern that we hold in our cells. It's a pattern that we hold in our subconscious mind. And there are ways that we can start moving past that. And there are so many tools out there now, whether it's the tapping method, whether it's the affirmations, whether it, and in the work that I've done with the cranial, you touch into that cell, the cell remembers things, they'll bring it up. And once it's and if you could have somebody really guide you through it, once it comes up, energy is energy. It just wants to move. It doesn't want to be trapped in the cycle. It wants to be move and out. Because when we come here, we as all-knowing beings, we'll just say we come here as all-knowing beings. We come here with this divine blueprint of who we are so that we actually remember. And in that remembrance, we know that we're not the experience. We know that we're not the anger or the hatred or the fear. We know we're not that in our blueprint, in this totality of who we are. Our cells know that. And so what we strive to is to go back to that all-knowing who we are. We strive to throw off those energies that aren't serving us. In the same way that when we cut ourselves, all the white blood cells come in and heal that wound, right? The
Right.
body strives to heal itself. We come in with this blueprint to strive to heal ourselves. Healing ourselves means bringing us back to our original state of that all-knowing, that part of us who knows this, who knows that I'm not all of this accumulated patterns and accumulated filters that I've taken on. And a lot of those, the ways, because it's tricky, is because most of those patterns we took on by the age of 2, and they're pretty set by the age of 6. So we don't remember taking those on. We take them on from family, from the environment, from the culture, from the country, starting from mother and father, because they're the closest to us when we're little. But when we're babies, we're in the delta state of the brainwave. And so delta state is like at that state where we're total sponges. We just take everything on. We don't filter, we just take it on. So that's when we take on the fear, we take on the judgment. We don't have words for it. We don't have a concept for it. We take it all on as energy. And then we start modeling our whole lives around that. So if we can start seeing everything as energy and start understanding that it's just patterns of energy that we took on before we had any awareness of it, and we live those energies and those patterns unconsciously, and they're just reactions out of our subconscious because that's where all of that is stored. If we know that, and then we can start with awareness, consciously choosing not to be with those patterns, not to live those patterns. And we can start clearing out those patterns. That's a lot of the work that we do, is about how do we clear out those patterns that we took out on at an early age. And that's what a lot of the work on the planet right now, it's making that easier because it's bringing that to surface. Up until now, all that was suppressed so deep inside, you didn't know it was there until it came out like as a reaction. The anger would come out, the fear as a reaction. So we didn't think we had any way of stopping it or any way to be otherwise. But now it's all coming to surface. And as it surfaces, if we know that it's there in our subconscious, if we know it's not something that we necessarily chose or that's necessarily really a part of us, then we can consciously start making other choices. Then we can say, okay, this anger seems to come up a lot. I'm just going to feel it. And if I could just feel it 100% in that moment, not to project it out, not to, shoot it out at somebody, just to feel it, that's all the body needs to kind of release it, to move through it. And that's like one tool. And there are several, but we have the tools now to really shift and move out of that. And we're being called to move out of that quickly, because once all of that's gone, what remains, what's left, is who we really are. What's left is our essence, is who we are as soul, as spirit, as these spiritual beings. And then we can inhabit this body as that high vibrational being and choose how we wish to be here, choose what we wish to create here, choose. And it sounds like, it sounds like a utopia, right? It sounds like something that unattainable, but it's really, really it's getting the way that so many masters, and both in the seen world and unseen world, are working with the energies on the planet right now to clear so much. What was not maybe possible 20 years ago is so possible now. So part of it is trusting that we can do this, and then making that conscious choice to shift this, and using tools that are available for us to make those shifts.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh gosh. You've said so much. Like it's and it's so big. I mean, you know, the, the only way out is through. And you have just been, you know, kind of saying that in that space, and that's really it, right? And we have this I don't know. I mean, at least the culture that I exist in, um, that are terrified of looking at trauma, terrified of conflict. And so, in the work that I do in conflict resolution and teaching people how to show up for others or resolve your own conflict, you have to face it. I mean, you have to. It's like my dad used to call it paper tigers. So, you face the fear, and you let it get right here, and you notice that it's not even real, right? But we hold on to our pain because it helps us um, identify who we are on some level, right? On the egoic level, we
Yeah.
we we make that our identity,
Mhm.
and then if you do that, then you can't let that go because but really, I mean, let's think. I mean, if we're really thinking about it, we're not all the things that we say we are. That's not who we are. That's the role that we're playing here for the purpose of learning. And
Mhm.
so, for those people who are suffering, from like being triggered from from a trauma, a past trauma, um, and if you just face it, if you can just look at it, like you said, be in the awareness of it without judgment, it peels away like layers of conditioning just peel away,
Mhm.
like an onion until what's left. There's no, I mean, all of that conditioning is gone, there's love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you end up.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then why not just try to let that go?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and there are so many ways to do that. I have experienced craniosacral therapy a couple of times, and I was amazed at what came up. Um, and I think like for people who aren't used to using particular tools, to practice their own self-awareness and or
Mhm.
growing their self-awareness on their own, if they can go in and get a healing modality such as craniosacral therapy. I mean, there are a bunch of other ones too, but maybe that's something. Would you mind explaining what that
Yes.
looks like?
Yes. I mean, that was my, I mean, between meditation and craniosacral work, those were really the tools that helped me get started on this path. And of course, my spiritual work with Her Holiness Saima really deepened my awareness and knowledge of it. And in the energy work, with what's amazing with craniosacral work or osteopathy and that whole branch of wisdom and knowledge is that it's literally tuning in to the that blueprint that I spoke about, right? That blueprint that we come with. It's like the blueprint is how we our hands and our whole body is created. That's how the cells know how to replicate themselves into this person. And the blueprint is also holding all the memories, not just of this lifetime, but of all lifetimes that we've had, because we're looking at an accumulation of different things. And if you were to look at this as the balancing out of everything that we lived in different lifetimes so that we could ultimately remember who we are and bring all these experiences with us, then those cells have to reside in us. We have to bring those with us. And so the what we would call the Akashic records or the Akash, the accumulation of that knowledge of where the records all reside, they reside in our DNA, they reside in our cells on an energetic level or a quantum level. And so the cranial work, the way I was trained and the way I see it is is literally moving into the quantum field of the cells where all this information is held. And as a practitioner, what the practitioners really, when they're trained in to work with the energy of this, because not everybody's trained to work with the energetics of the cranial field, but when they're really trained in the energy, if they could just tune in, like in a single touch, they can tune in. You start, it's like when Jesus said, when two or more are gathered, there's something in that energy of bringing two energies together. And so, as a practitioner, when you tune into that cell, suddenly, and it's holographic. You could be holding onto the pinky finger. You tune into that cell, and that information that's held in that Akash, the information that's held in the quantum level, starts to emerge and becomes available. And so it could bring knowledge that we've come here with. It can bring forth like that, what we're here to clear or complete. It can bring forth a clarity on why. You spoke about suffering before. It's not necessarily that we're here to suffer, but if we're trying to balance out something we've done in the past, like taking that example of, let's say I abandoned my child in a previous lifetime, and this time I get abandoned as a child in this lifetime, and I'm suffering from that abandonment, then that abandonment, that suffering isn't necessarily because somebody did wrong me or did something to me. It's because I, as a soul, am balancing something out. And the moment I remember that I came to learn this, and moment that I remember that I that this is a balance and I'm taking on for myself. And whoever played a part in that, whether it's my mother abandoning me, I'm not saying that my mother did, but whoever played a part in that, they were playing a part for me
Mhm.
to have that experience. If I can really let that sink in, if I can on cellular level remember that, then suddenly I'm no longer judging that person. I'm no longer putting a blame on that person. And when I stop judging, when I stop putting blame, but simply taking where I am now and first accepting the situation as something I've created for whatever reason, that is the healing. Suddenly I can let go. Most of the suffering is because I'm blaming or because I'm trying to find retribution or why are you doing this to me? Or that aspect of that judgment, that blaming, that's what's causing the suffering. It's not the actual fact that I was abandoned. Because if I were abandoned, I could have a totally different experience from that same act. It's not the act in itself, it's all the emotions, everything that gets attached to it. I'm not saying that that wasn't hard as a young person. I'm not saying that that wasn't difficult. I'm not saying that. But when you come into that awareness, and when you choose to look at it from a non-blaming, but looking at it as owning whatever I'm experiencing now and however I choose to take it forward from here is my choice, then you're empowered
Yeah.
to in your feelings.
Yes. I love this. And I just like, I feel like we are so in alignment with what we do. You in Tokyo and me here in the United States and Virginia. Gosh, it's like the way that I talk about this is like, before you get here, you go to the cosmic grocery store and you walk down the aisles and you say, okay, I would really like to experience this thing, like that would help life to know itself. And I want to experience this over here. And then a soul comes up and says, oh, you want to experience that? I will show up for you so you can have that experience.
Mhm,
And I love you so much. I'm gonna show up for you. But in order for them to do that, they have to also have an experience that was probably a lot worse than what they're getting ready to do to you, right? Or that they're getting ready to offer you in that
mhm,
experience that you asked for. And, so if you can think of it along those terms, like this person loves me or this soul loves me so much that they chose to have this experience so they could show
mhm,
up for me in this way,
mhm,
a totally different experience. It's a when you shift the perception, all of a sudden, whoa, and then you're really thinking about no longer are you thinking about yourself and your moral superiority, which is trapping you in victimhood. You're
mhm,
now considering how the humanity of another person,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And when you recognize that shared humanity, you don't want anybody to hurt anymore. There's no more blame. That's
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
yeah. And imagine the karma that they've created for themselves. And they knew that going into that. They're
Yeah.
willing to do that on that other level.
Yes. Yeah. And so then that's the energy of all that is balancing, trying to find
Balancing.
harmony. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
And
just incredible.
yes, it's amazing. And if you were to take the energies of victimhood, the energy of blame, and the energy of judgment and doubt, if you were to take these four energies out of our system, if they didn't exist, can you imagine how different life would be?
Yeah. It would be a joyful place. I mean, and if we can just do that, if we can be that example, that shining example for the people around us, the people that we love, then we can lift them. It's we can all lift each other.
Mhm.
Um, yes, it's like the blame and the judgment are the big ones that we can see very
Mm.
easily, right?
Yeah,
hmm
yeah,
We can choose something different. Yeah.
yes. Without that, the world would shift overnight, literally. And if we can choose in our lives, like if I were to choose in this moment, I will no longer go into blame or judgment. No matter what happens, I will not go in blame and judgment. I take responsibility for whatever happens, whatever feelings I'm feeling, whatever happens. And that also goes for me. I don't blame myself or judge myself. I just take responsibility. I see what's happening. It's either energy that I clear and let go of. It's no longer necessary for me, or it's an energy that I embrace and really embody in terms of understand.
Yeah.
And whatever I do, that doesn't have to entail a judgment. It doesn't have to entail a blaming. It's just, that's what I came here for. I came here to experience the whole gambit. So this is that part of it. I'm experiencing it, and not labeling as bad or good. It's just a different frequency. It's a different energy. I'm going to experience it, but that's all. And that's a completion itself. And because each energy has an energy, like anger, has an incredible force of energy to it. And so it's like nothing is right or wrong or good or bad, but it does perpetuate certain states of being and ways of being. And I could choose not to perpetuate blame and judgment within myself. I can choose not to be a victim. And that choice is not, it's not even letting the other person off the hook. I think that's where people get stuck. Like, oh, if I choose that I'm not the victim, then I'm saying that whatever that person did was okay.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the other person. It's just saying I am empowering myself to say I'm not a victim.
Yeah.
That's, and in that choice, I'm freeing myself. I'm not whatever that person has to deal with is that person's karma. It's that person's their thing. I can be free in this moment. And I think that's the part, is freeing myself, and in freeing myself, then ultimately I'm freeing the other. And if we all free each other in this way and see it all as one big happy experiencing family, and the other part is the community. If we can really find that community where we're supporting and being supportive to one another on this journey, and thinking in this way of being responsible for whatever we individually are feeling, and sharing from that place, that will create a different world.
Yes. Yes, it will. And that it's being here for each other and understanding that, we're all having our own individual experience in the greater whole of everything that's happening. And if we can just offer a little bit of grace, and it's like you said, especially to yourself, we can be our own worst critic. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy.
Mhm.
I know people who say things to themselves that they wouldn't say to another person, because they would never do that, right? But they will attack themselves. And when you do that, when you turn inward and self attack,
Mhm.
that energy is going out into the world and the universe. I mean, you're
Mhm.
creating this energy and it's going out and it's going to impact everything, right?
Yeah.
So
And you attract it to you.
yeah, and boomerang right back to you. Yeah, yeah. And so that's something to remember. Um, our humility doesn't mean not honoring yourself.
Mhm.
Honoring yourself is a very important practice. So yes, thank you so much. I know our time's almost up. Do you have
Mhm.
anything that you would like to that we haven't covered yet that you would like to share with our viewers?
No, I think I just would love to say it's been an honor to be with you, Sarah. I've really enjoyed our time together. And for the viewers, just really a remembrance how much you are loved by the universe, that there's like this huge force that's here. It's always around us in the seen realms and unseen realms, that we are all, you are so loved, so accepted, no matter what you might think of yourselves or the world, that there's so much of that love and that light here. And just to remember that.
Yeah. That is, it's a wonderful way to end this and thinking about if you're having a hard time like swallowing that concept, that truth, um, you know, just let your imagination take you,
Mhm.
just that we are born with our imaginations. No one has to teach us how to use them. That's the knowing, that's the knowingness that we're
Yeah.
talking about, that's the access to it. And so
Mhm.
you can imagine how much you are loved. I mean, we that's a hard thing, right? But we can try to imagine how much we are actually loved, and it's beyond you know what we can comprehend in this logical existence that we exist in. It is
Mhm.
beyond that. It is in the mystical, it is in the magical.
Yeah.
um yes, if we knew, like, gosh, if every person knew how much they were loved, it would just be glorious. It would lift all of us up, boom, just like that.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, and
thank
just
you so
breathe,
much.
breathe,
Huh?
breathe. The breath. The breath is life, and just breathe that in. Sometimes I think we hold the breath and we don't let it in. So when we imagine ourselves and how much we're loved, just take a moment to breathe it in and let the breath carry that
Wow.
awareness inside.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, the viewers can reach you. The link will be on the website and then on the Facebook page. They can reach out and ask you some questions if they want.
I'm
So,
looking forward to. I'll be starting Instagram and all of these things. I part of my moving from on-site to online, so I'll be much more accessible soon. So I look forward to connecting with everybody. That would be lovely. Thank
yes. All right. Well, thank you so very much. And I hope we
you.
get to talk again soon.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.